Good Sunday evening. Welcome again to True Story Live. So happy to be here. We've got a great show for you tonight. Last week we talked about the feeling of love, which is separate from the emotion. So tonight we tackle the emotion of love and how we each experience it in our lives. So we borrow again some quotes from, I'm sure you won't mind. Paulo says, one is loved because one is loved. No reason is needed for loving. So in part one last week, we heard believers explain how God is love. And that's cut and dried if one is a believer. But what about those who feel and experience love without God? Is that even possible, to feel love without knowing the source of all love? If any person utters the words, I love you, does one think, I better check first whether this person is a believer before I trust anything they might say? If a believer feels emotional about their spiritual connection with God, is it implausible that a non-believer could feel similarly within their own realm? So tonight, by bringing emotionally personal stories of love to the table, we hope to shed some light on these questions. So one of the stories you will hear is an emotional story of love from a believer to a non-believer. It is actually written by my mom, Linda, to Glenn from Australia. So for those that do not know how we came to be friends, this might fill in some of the gaps for some of you. The panel will also each share a love story from their hearts for your approval. No one from the chat shared a story, unfortunately. So it's fine, but we really, really want you to get involved with us here at TSL. So please send your questions or comments to truestorylive.crips@gmail.com or talkingdoctrine@gmail.com. Either one of those ways, if you do have a question or a comment, one of us, Matthias or myself, will certainly answer every email that we receive, and we'll discuss whether we want to use your question or comment on the air. So with all the stories tonight, you alone can decide if you feel the words are authentic. So do you hear truth in these words? And what are the words that we use? So welcome, Matthias, and Talking Doctrine Simulcast. How are you doing? Oh, well, I'm showing that he's connected. Jen, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Okay.
And we also have Steve with us. Steve, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I am doing just all right. I'm tired, but I'm all right.
Yeah, you're chilling in Pennsylvania, right?
I'm chilling.
Yeah.
Not
all laid
villain.
back and relaxed.
Laid back.
Yeah. With your mind on your money and your money on your mind.
I knew that was coming.
I knew it.
It's
I was
coming.
waiting for somebody to finish that.
I totally set you up.
Yeah, you
Yep,
sure did.
I did.
I can't leave one like that open, buddy. You lay it out like that, I've got to knock it out. I've got to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Laid back. With
Yeah.
my mind on my Jesus and my Jesus on my mind.
That's even better. All right, so we've got a kind of a fun subject tonight in talking about love, and we have some love stories and talking about the emotions, as I just talked about in the introduction. Definitely want to see what happened with Matthias, though. So I'm looking at the Talking Doctrine Simulcast. It is working. Seems connected. Matthias, can you hear me, buddy? Okay. Jen, are you plugged in over there to the simulcast? Are you able to hear it at all, or hear me over there? Okay.
I can hear you fine on the simulcast, although I paused it just because it echoes. So I just messaged Matthias, or just hit on the chat. Matthias, are you there?
Okay.
Haven't gotten a response yet.
Okay, well, we'll just wait for him. It could be that he just had something going on and he wanted to connect the broadcast.
He just messaged. He said, I can hear you guys. We were simulcasting, but you guys cannot hear me for some reason. Trying to figure it out. Sorry.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, at least we have an answer for that, so we figured that one out. Great. Okay, so what we want to do, we're going to start out tonight with a story from my mother to Glenn from Australia. For those that are first-time listeners, Glenn and my mother had a relationship for a period of time, and then my mom had divorced my father, and so they weren't together at the time. And then later, she felt led to get back with him, and they got remarried. And unfortunately, that left Glenn out of the situation. So, when my mom died a little over 15 months ago, Glenn and I continued a relationship. We'd met previously and talked a few times, but we talked a lot more often, and it was very therapeutic for both of us, I think, to talk about my mother after her death. And it just our friendship grew, and it got deeper and deeper. And he's very much a part of the show, and helped us look at it from the side of a non-believer. And I think it's helped us make improvements and having a kind of a different approach. I mean, the tenets of what we believe have not changed one bit. But definitely we have tried to become more inclusive. And at the core of this relationship that I have with Glenn, it wouldn't have been possible without him knowing my mom and them having a relationship. So we're going to start out tonight by reading the letter, and Jen has graciously agreed to read it. I think it will sound much better coming from her than me trying to read it with my very male voice. I mean, I probably could. I told Jen I probably could, put on a female affect, but I don't want it to be campy. I want it to just be nice. So, Jen, if you're ready, go ahead and read the letter from my mom to Glenn from Australia.
Okay. And you guys can hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay, good deal. Okay. It says, Dear Glenn, I'm assuming that you have finished the book. This book was given to me by my client, the wife who was the woman living in the basement. She asked her husband to read it, and he, like most men, could see no purpose in it. You, unlike most men, have read it and have gained insight by doing so. That's what makes you so special. I believe that this book could have been written by you. It is a book that describes us, a different time and different circumstances, but it is about a soulmate love. I was overwhelmed by reading this and seeing how it was in the beginning and how it carried through until the end of their lives together. It is based on a true story, which made it all the more meaningful to me. I could see me laying in a sick bed and you by my side, still thinking I was beautiful and still committed to me. I could see it being the other way around as well. The way the author described their connection was so beautiful, and I could not think of a better way to describe what we had felt for each other. And now you can see why the weekend in Florida turned out to be such an emotional weekend for me, thinking of us, about us, and what we had and what we cannot have. My other thought, I think you should consider becoming a writer. You could have written this book. It was as if the author was you. I know you could not be a writer as your job now, but I want you to think about it as something you'd explore as part of your passion. Because your heart is different, your words are different, and that would make you a successful writer by anyone's standards. I hope you will take my encouragement to heart and give this careful thought. The question that came up for me, what if Allie had chosen to not come back and had married Lon? Is there a chance that she could have found such love with him? I have to believe that when we are not able to be with our soulmate, that we can hope for the soulmate connection to develop with another who is willing to work towards such an end. This is what I must teach my clients that come to me. those who have a desire for this kind of love and who are already in a committed relationship, and I have to have this hope for you and for me. It is my hope that you were touched by this story as I was. I felt like I was with you while reading the entire book, which I did in one sitting. I hope that you read the thoughts and words of Allie as if they were coming from me. But my biggest hope is that you will find your Allie in Australia. Perhaps you have already. She may not be the same as me, but she will be your soulmate, and you will sit by her side until death do you part. And your feeling of excitement at her touch will be the same in the end as it was in the beginning. That is my hope for you, my soulmate. Lovingly, Linda.
Wow. Okay, well, there it is. And it's I just have to, wow, that's, I do get a little emotional whenever I hear that for many reasons. Of course, one of them being is because, you know, she's not here right now. And I don't want this to be about me. I'm just saying that I connect very much not only to her writing, but the story that I know comes out of this letter. And that will be more clear to you all later, because there is a story that Glenn has shared, which will be kind of an answer to the end of this letter that she had written to him. And in many ways, for those of you that don't know, and how could you, but my mother is giving Glenn a blessing that did indeed come true for him to find his soulmate, knowing that this relationship with my mother was not going to be what either of them thought it would be, but that with their meeting, the vibrations of that continue on to this day. And my relationship with Glenn, and every person that Glenn touches, and every person that my mother breathed love and life into, that remain on this earth. So I could talk more about that, but what we'll do now, for those of you that have never read The Notebook or seen the movie, I'm going to read a brief synopsis of it just to fill in a couple of gaps. And I do strongly suggest it. You know, it is kind of a romantic movie. What do they call them? Chick flicks, Jen?
Yeah.
Chick flick. But I've watched it a few times myself, and there's one part that I cry every time. And I think if a movie can be done well enough to evoke emotions in any person, I think it's a worthy production. So the basic synopsis of The Notebook is a man with a faded, well-worn notebook open in his lap, a woman experiencing a morning ritual she doesn't understand, until he begins to read to her. The Notebook is an achingly tender story of love, a story of miracles that will stay with you forever. Set amid the austere beauty of coastal North Carolina in 1946, The Notebook begins with the story of Noah Calhoun, a rural Southerner, returned home from World War II. Noah, 31, is restoring a plantation home to its former glory, and he is haunted by images of a beautiful girl he met 14 years earlier, a girl he loved like no other. Unable to find her, yet unwilling to forget the summer they spent together, Noah is content to live with only memories, until she unexpectedly returns to his town to see him once again. Allie Nelson, 29, is now engaged to another man, but realizes that the original passion she felt for Noah has not dimmed with the passage of time. Still, the obstacles that once ended their previous relationship remain, and the gulf between their worlds is too vast to ignore. With her impending marriage only a few weeks away, Allie is forced to confront her hopes and dreams for the future that only she can shape. Like a puzzle within a puzzle, the story of Noah and Allie is just a beginning. As it unfolds, their tale miraculously becomes something different, with much higher stakes. The result is a deeply moving portrait of love itself, the tender moments and the fundamental changes that affect us all. Shining with a beauty that is rarely found in current literature, The Notebook establishes Nicholas Sparks as a classic storyteller with unique insight into the only emotion that really matters. That last sentence is saying a lot. The only emotion that really matters. Last week, I think we have a little bit of maybe a disagreement in what some of the people on the panel feel about feelings in general. How important are feelings? And we may get more into that tonight. So, all right. So let's do this now. So I have one clip, and I'm going to set this up just a little bit from the movie itself. This movie, it has a lot of romance in it and stuff, but it also has their arguments as well, some tough conversations. This clip is about 4 minutes long, but it is one of the fights that they had that shows that even though they were very much in love, their passion can run hot. And you may know some people that seem to bicker a lot, but they seem to stay married. I certainly have known a few like that as well. And for me, just personally, I would much rather have all-out fights with the person if I know they're not going to leave, rather than having someone just be real passive and then later find out that they're unhappy and can do nothing about it. Okay, so this is a clip from The Notebook. Bear with me. We'll be back.
Interesting morning.
Yeah. Lon's here in town.
He's here?
Yeah, we saw his car on the way to the hotel.
Huh. I see you got my letters. Finally. What are you going to do, Al?
I don't know.
We're back to that. Are we back there? What about the past couple of days? They happened, you know?
I know that they happened and they were wonderful, but they were also very irresponsible. I have a fiance waiting for me at a hotel who's going to be crushing me.
So you make love to me and then you go back to your husband? Is that your plan? Was that a test that I didn't pass?
I made a promise to a man. He gave me a ring and I gave him my word.
And your word is shot to hell now, don't you think?
I don't know. I'll find out when I talk to him.
This is not about keeping your promise, and it's not about following your heart. It's about security.
What is that supposed to mean?
Money!
What are you
He's got a lot of money.
Now I hate you, you
bastard.
You.
If you leave here, I hate you.
I
hate you if you leave
paying
here.
attention to anything that's been happening.
I guess not. I think I must have misread all of those signals.
I guess you did.
You're bored! You're bored and you know it. You wouldn't be here if there wasn't something missing.
Arrogant son of a bitch.
Would you just stay with me?
Stay with you? What for? Look at us. We're already fighting.
Well, that's what we do. We fight. You tell me when I'm being an arrogant son of a bitch, and I tell you when you're being a pain in the ass. Which you are, 99% of the time. I'm not afraid to hurt your feelings. They have like a 2-second rebound rate, and you're back doing the next pain in the ass thing.
So what?
So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard. And we're going to have to work at this every day, but I want to do that because I want you. I want all of you every day. Will you do something for me? Please? You just picture your life for me. 30 years from now, 40 years from now, what's it look like? If it's with that guy, go. Go! I lost you once. I think I could do it again if I thought it's what you really wanted. But don't you take the easy way out.
What easy way? There is no easy way. No matter what I do, somebody gets hurt.
Would you stop thinking about what everyone wants? Stop thinking about what I want, what he wants, what your parents want. What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want? Damn it. What do you want?
I have to go.
All right, so that was a clip, and I need to say here that this show is used for entertainment purposes only. We make no money from the show, and it's not being sold. No one is profiting from anything that we put. I do not own the rights to the clip that I just played, or the notebook, or any copyrights to the story. Okay, so that was interesting, and we could say a lot about, there's obviously some infidelity going on there, and some confusion and all that. Of course, we don't support that, but what I personally support is a person definitely finding love and finding how they can best relate to someone at a deeper level, and not having it just be that you go through life and just accept the mundane things and not have something special with someone. And in talking about tonight's topic, which is the emotion, there were definitely some emotions there. Before we get going any further, though, Matthias, can we hear you? Are you there?
I am hoping so.
Yes, there he is.
You guys can hear me?
There he is.
I can hear you.
Right.
Wonderful.
I apologize. When I was getting everything set up, even like the broadcast that even started, I was just moving my microphone and it unplugged. And so I plugged it back in, but that doesn't fix the problem apparently. So I've got to reboot with it. But I couldn't reboot because the broadcast had already started. So it was either stop the simulcast or change stations. So I just opened up the booth we have in the back, and so we're working out of both of them again.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'm glad. I'm just glad that you're here, so we can continue, no problem at all. So thank you for being here. So welcome all the people at Talk of Doctrine. Of course, they've heard from the beginning, but I didn't address them yet. And so hope everyone in the chat room is doing well. And Glenn should be in there shortly if he isn't already. I don't know if he is. I haven't been looking over there. Oh, yep, he's there.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so you probably didn't, Matthias, you probably didn't get to hear how much of the show were you able to hear it while you were doing things, or not being able to pay attention at all, or what?
I missed out on most of it. I came in whenever the clip was being played.
Okay, perfect. So
I did hear a little bit before as I was trying to get things, I guess in the middle of the letter to Glenn was when I had to actually physically move, and at that point I couldn't hear anymore, but I heard most of everything up until that point.
Okay. All right. So Jen read the first story, which is from my mother, and then we each have something that we're going to share as well. So I'm assuming, Matthias, that you have a story to share, or were you able to get to that?
Sorry, I've got a much smaller mute button on this station back here.
That's okay. I was looking for my Cricket button again. I can't find it.
Oh no worries. I'm actually trying to still get YouTube set up over here so I can get in the chat room over there.
Well, I'm not gonna ask you to do it right this second. Yeah, when you feel comfortable, you got everything all dialed in over there. We can get your story if you have one.
I gotcha. Well, yeah, no, I don't have one written down for you, but
that's okay.
But my wife and I have been talking, and we've got a few stories. But yeah,
would she like to share? Would your wife like to share her love story?
Probably not tonight. I'm trying to catch up her side of it so I can present it, but no, probably not tonight.
No problem. No problem. Throwing it out there. She's always welcome. Okay, so what I'd like to do now then, we read my mom's, and then we had all the notebook stuff so people have a good idea of what that is. And then so now I would like to share Glenn's story. So Glenn is in the chat room, and so this is his story. Okay, so I'm not going to try to do an Aussie accent. I could, but I don't want to focus on trying to do the accent, because the thing about the Aussie accent is you always start out very strong and then it ends up sounding like British for me every time. All right. So first I wish to say to my wife, Sandra, you are a delight to me. I look forward to every day with you, and I love you dearly. This love story is about online dating, a spiritual connection, and a wedding ring. I found Sandra online after almost giving up the search. What a fractal female she turned out to be. Even better was that it only cost me 80 cents to send her a message. The best 80 cents I've ever spent. I think we shared a couple of emails and got together for a couple of hours at a coffee shop at a place called Mount Cootha, which overlooks Brisbane. That couple of hours went pretty well. So we agreed to meet again 2 nights later, as this was the first time available to us. What was going to happen next was pretty obvious to each of us. So after a while chatting at the second meeting, Sandra said, I think we should go home together to my place. From that minute on, we have lived as a couple. The interesting aspect of this is that there was, for us, no romantic love chemistry. Don't get me wrong. That does not mean lack of passion or excitement. It means a new way of experiencing love and connection. It is a feeling of knowing where there really are no questions to ask. It just is what it is. So easy. We each agreed that our first connection was based on spirituality. Then the emotional and physical was embodied at another level down from that. Every aspect works the same. It has always been Sandra's contention that a relationship based on authentic connection at a spiritual level cannot fail in human terms. I've seen no evidence to dispute that. It was pretty obvious we were going to be married, but there was never a proposal. So we moved to the wedding ring. Sandra said, I know what sort of ring I'd like. So that was going to make it easy. So we could buy one, have one made, etc. I was a bit sheepish about bringing up this next bit, but decided to go for it anyway. I said, I have this engagement ring from the past, and I can sell it, or you can have a look at it, see what you think. So I fronted up with the ring and put it on the table. Sandra had this weird look on her face. I said, what's going on? She said, that's my ring. That's exactly what I had in my head, a combination of rubies and sapphires in a band. Of course, I'm thinking to myself, this is surreal. How could this happen? So I said, try it on. She did, and it was a perfect fit for her finger. We had a bit of a laugh about what had just happened and said to each other something like, if we tell the story, no one's ever going to believe it. Sandra then said, even though you picked this ring for someone else, it was always my ring. I asked myself what might be the moral to the story. The best I could come up with was everyone who crosses our path comes for a reason. All we need to do is open and listen to them. I thank you all for listening to. All right. So that is Glenn's love story that he's sharing with us. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. All right. All right. Now, who would like to share their story, or does someone have a comment on Glenn's story?
I think Brenda is coming on to share hers.
You
Hi,
have
Brenda.
to share your funny one.
Oh,
Hey
guys, how are you?
Steve.
Hey, Brenda.
That was beautiful. I love that letter.
Oh.
That was awesome.
My mom's letter or Glenn's letter, or both?
Both. They're both beautiful. Loved it.
Thank you.
Yes, they were. They were absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, so you're starting to see the connection between the two of them.
Yes, that's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Neat.
Okay, Brenda, I appreciate you calling in tonight. Are you doing okay? Everything good with you?
Oh, we're good. My kids are in their rooms listening to praise and worship music and relaxing. So I think I'm good to go.
Awesome. Okay, well, are you ready to share? Do you want to wait till later, or what are you in the mood for?
Oh, I mean, I can share. It won't be too long. I was just going to share how Jim and I met. So,
perfect. You have the floor.
Thank you. So, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to start. Well, God called me. It started off with me going to Spain for 9 months to do mission work. And I worked at a missionary school in Madrid, and I met this family, Joe and Noemi Zabo, and their kids. And their kids went to the school that I helped out at. And Noemi, who's always trying to find a godly woman for her husband's youngest brother. And Jim is the youngest of 7 kids. And Joe is the oldest. So I became really good friends with them. And Noemi said to her husband, I know, how about Brenda? And Jim actually came out to visit in Spain to visit his brother for 2 weeks before he went off to do some military stuff. And I'm trying to think what happened. Oh, actually, I was the one who kind of started it. I'm trying to remember how this worked. So also, we were going to babysit this family with 4 kids, and Joe and Noemi and Jim were going to go out to eat with this family. So I wanted to meet Jim, actually, because Noemi told me all about him. And I asked Emily if I could babysit with her, and she's like, oh yeah, of course. Well, when I got to the house, Joe, Noemi, and Jim were there, and Jim was really standoffish at the time. And I think it was a time change. He wasn't used to being up so late. So, make a long story short, I thought to myself, oh, he's not interested. I even got myself all done up and everything. I'm like, oh, it didn't work out. He didn't talk to me at all. And I went back to the missionary school, and Noemi came up to me that afternoon, and she said, hey, Brenda, Jim wants to apologize for being standoffish. She was just really tired, and he was wondering if he could call you. Oh, definitely. So he called me from their house, and the entire 2 weeks we hung out. We went into Madrid, and we had coffee and walked around. And after the 2 weeks, we just knew we wanted to keep writing letters to each other. So he left. That was in January of 2001. He left to go back to the States. I stayed in Spain till about June or July. And during that course of time, we wrote many letters. I mean, it was just really cool. And we ended up, he was going to Italy I think it was in May. And Noemi told me, hey, by the way, Jim's stopping in Spain for 1 day to see you. And I'm like, what? And actually, you're not supposed to do that with military.
No.
But yeah, no. We did it anyway. And he came out in his uniform, and I was like, oh my goodness. And we hung out for 1 day, and then he left, went to Italy for 5 months, and we wrote more letters during that time. Now I went back to the States in June or July. I think it was July. My mom came out to Spain, and we flew back together. And we were trying to figure out at the time what we were planning on doing, because he's in Wisconsin. I'm in New Jersey. And he decided to move out to Pennsylvania after his 5-month deployment in Italy. And because we just knew, he moved out to Pennsylvania, and we hung out for quite a while. And then he asked my parents' hand in marriage. He came to church one day. He was a little late. He went to get the ring, and he came to church and kind of took my parents to the side. I kind of knew what was going on, but I didn't know exactly what was going on. And he asked my parents, and I found out we were going into New York City. And he wanted to copy the movie, I'm not going to remember now. It's from the 1950s about this couple who meet up on the Empire State Building. And he wanted
Sleepless in Seattle?
Yeah, Sleepless in Seattle. Yeah. Was there an older version of it? And then there's a newer version, right? Wasn't there? I'm thinking of the newer
I only
one.
remember the Tom Hanks version.
Oh, the Tom Hanks. Yes, the Tom Hanks version. And so we went to up to the Empire State Building in the middle of December, like freezing. And he leaned over, he said, Brenda, will you marry me? And I said, of course. And then he took me on a horse and buggy ride around Central Park. And that was like, yeah, and we got married the following year in August. So it's been 16 years. And
wow.
Yeah, we're good. So that's my love story.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you for
Sure.
sharing.
So I would love to ask you questions, but we'll see. We'll save those for later.
Sure.
All right. Steve, are you up? You ready to share yours? You have 2 short love stories to share with the listeners.
Yeah. I didn't think it was all going to be romantic love stories, though. I hadn't planned to share a romantic love story, and now I'm like, oh no.
What have you written a love story about, Steve?
Well, you said any type of love story about love. It didn't have to be romantic. So,
yeah,
I am a little bit of a romantic, but
I believe you, Steve. I believe you.
So I can share a little bit of how my wife and I met. I would like to share the other 2 I had planned.
Well, let me be clear. It's great that doesn't have to be all romantic. I mean, romance is not necessarily the theme of the show. It's emotion.
Okay.
The emotion of love, right? So, but you can tell the 2. You don't have to do How You Met Your Mom. You can do Met Your Mom, or How I Met Steve's Mom.
No.
Okay. No. We'll just leave that one there. Okay. Go ahead with your story, Steve.
Okay. Well, all right. Here's it's kind of like a cliffhanger. Well, not cliffhanger. Like leave you in the dark story till the end. It's so there once was a guy who was got into a bad sort of lifestyle, and first it started out with just hanging out with some not so Christian people, and it led him down into drugs and alcohol, and eventually starting to hang out with gang members and different things like that, and just totally immersing himself into a street lifestyle, because really he was angry. He was angry with himself, angry with God for how his life had gone, and himself for decisions he had made in his life, and eventually he ran out of options and burned too many bridges and ended up homeless and in a homeless shelter. And this homeless shelter happened to be a Christian-run homeless shelter, and he ended up making some better friends there, and was still angry, still hurt, still untrusting of people, and still not out of the lifestyle as far as in his mind. And he, was required to go to church, and was invited by one of his more closer friends that he was starting to befriend, and this friend took him to this small little church, and there was this guy there that I don't know the best word to call him or not, but didn't have all his mental faculties.
Okay.
The word they used to use for this condition would be retarded. I know that's not the appropriate name now for that, but that's and so this guy who also went to this church that was mentally impaired was a believer, and even though in the back of our main character's mind, he was a believer too, just, you know, angry with God, and wasn't sure he still wanted anything to do with it because of how other believers had treated him and how people that he thought he trusted had treated him, had burned him, and so. Sure. But this every Sunday that the main character went, this guy that was mentally deficient would always come up to him and ask him in his own way, "How are you doing?" and give him a hug and treat him like he was no different than anybody else and deserving of a hug and the love of Jesus. And this just kept going on and on and on for weeks and weeks. And at first it really irritated the guy and just aggravated him because of the way, you know, this guy acted and you know, just really irritated him. But over time, the love from this man who was maybe 13 or 14, 15 in his mind, 30 some years old, mainly in a wheelchair, who knew this guy's name, never forgot it from the day he first met him. Eventually tore down this man's walls and allowed a friendship to develop, and in a way that this guy had never experienced before, being treated with that kind of selfless, unconditional love without knowing any of this guy's past failures, etc. And when the main character's family decided to give him a second chance, he wept when he had to leave.
Wow.
And that main character was me.
Wow.
Wow, Steve.
That's wonderful, buddy.
That's awesome.
And this other story, not me. There's about a guy.
First of all, Steve, just as a little space between the two stories, I really appreciate you sharing that, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And that taught me something, that since we're on a little interlude, that taught me something that I don't think I would have learned any other way about the true depth of Christ's love for us.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Absolutely.
That's how he sees each and every one of us. He doesn't see the failures. He doesn't see the past. All he can look at us with is love. Because he already took care of the sin.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that guy to my dying day. It was beautiful. And I really was like, there's this guy again at first, okay, let me give you a hug. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
But I love you, Steve. I love you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ray. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And eventually it became, I love you too, Ray.
Aww.
And
he cracked that hard nut of your heart right open.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that's the powerful thing, especially with what we're talking about, and how we treat each other as believers. It was the love.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No amount of hateful teaching or preaching would have done it.
Steve, you hit right on it, man. I mean, that's the point that we're trying to breathe into TSL in the first place. when we see all the name calling and all the hate and all the anger and frustration that people hurl at each other, Christians and non-believers alike. I mean, it just shouldn't be happening. It just shouldn't be happening. Love is one of the most important things that's described for us to share. It is a proof that we are his children. They will know by our love. That's how we recognize each other. So if we're not seeing that, then there's a huge problem. Gosh, Steve, I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, go ahead with your second story, Steve, and then we'll keep going.
Okay. And so I just wanted to throw in there with what you're saying, some scripture on that paraphrase, but this was one of my dad's favorite verses, and one he tried to live by was a soft word turns away wrath, or a quiet word, a soft, quiet approach turns away wrath. And I think that's so true.
It is. It's very true.
So the second story, and this one, well, I'll say at the end. This is about a guy who was a traveling businessman, and he was a bit of a loner. He didn't have much, ties with his family, and he just worked a lot and was constantly traveling. And because he didn't have family or companionship or the time for that, he wanted some company in his life, something to say, to talk to or whatever. And some people would get a cat or a dog or something like that, but because he was gone so long, he couldn't take care of a cat or a dog, or that kind of a pet. So what he ended up buying was some expensive tropical fish that he could watch swim in the water and just talk to and pretend like he was having a conversation with someone and pretend like there was someone waiting for him to come home to. And he bought all the equipment to regulate the temperature and clean the tank and all this. And he loved these fish. They were like his family because he didn't really have anybody but these fish. So if any of you, know what it's like to own a pet, you know how much you love your pet. And well, one night he was, he had come home and, talked to his fish and told them about his week-long business trip and journey, and he went to sleep. And while he was sleeping, the temperature regulator for the fish malfunctioned and slowly but surely started to overheat the water to the point where the water literally boiled to death the fish. And when he woke up that morning and he saw his fish devastated, he was devastated seeing his fish dead, his only connection to the world. And he thought to himself, he wondered, did the fish scream while I slept? Did they scream for me, cry for help, and I couldn't hear them? And this story has been used to illustrate how at times in our lives we scream like that inside. And other people may not be able to hear our scream. But what he understood from that was that God can hear your scream.
Wow.
That's in the middle of the night when the water is boiling in your life, God can hear your scream. And just like with the story before, his love is boundless in any situation in your life. So.
Wow. Okay. Gosh, thanks, Steve. That's awesome.
You're most welcome.
All right. See, chat room, how easy it is. I say that because we asked last week for the chat room to send us their love stories so we could add that to tonight's show. So we're getting there, though. So if you like some of the stories you hear, we'll be doing more of this. We'll be presenting things like this more often, and we want to involve the chat room. And it may seem like it takes a little bit of courage, but the people on the panel, have shown great courage to be able to do that. And so it shows it can be done. So thanks again, Steve. Very much appreciate it. All right. So thank you. I would like to hear from Matthias if he's around. If you're ready, Matthias, if you could share one of your stories, if you're prepared.
Well, I don't know how prepared I am. I've got, listening to everything that's been said. We were looking at the love story of my wife and I. While I can say at one point I was looking for the whole fairy tale love story, we can look back and say that if it were not for God, we wouldn't be together. Pretty much no ifs, ands, or buts. And like when we met, it was physical attraction, and it was living as the world and doing worldly things, and just caring about the ways of the world. But I can honestly say that there was something inside of me, and I can look back now, and I do believe it was God. But I've had people say, "Oh no, God wouldn't tell you to fornicate." But when I look back and see everything that came from our first child, that I had something inside. I don't want to say I don't want to say it was voices, but I had never had a desire to have a baby with a girl before in my life. And I was completely, I didn't believe the Bible. I was agnostic at this time. I wanted to believe in a God, but I didn't believe in the Catholic God for sure. And I thought Catholics and Christians were the same at the time. But so with that, my wife now also kind of had the same desire, in the fact that she was looking at it as she wanted some of my DNA, and she had never wanted to have a child before too. So both of us who lived as the world, all sorts of different friends and partners, but when we met, both of us tried to have a child together, and we did have a child together. And after that, it was almost as if we regretted it, because the fact that we didn't get along right away. There were a lot of issues in the first couple years, because, like I said, I was looking for fairy tale, and she was looking for somebody more mature. I was still quite immature. And so, but the child kept us together. And with all the other different things that were going on, with my father being ill and everything else, we ended up moving back to Florida. And it was then when I actually met some people who jolted my perception of what I believed reality was, and I even more so because I was searching for truth already in Texas. But when I moved back to Florida, I met people who eventually pointed me to the true seeking of the Bible.
Right.
And when my eldest daughter was 2 years old, late in her second birthday was when we both had come to the conclusion, my wife and I, just a few months apart of each other, both believed on the Lord Jesus Christ. And from there, I can honestly say that when I started obeying God in the ways that I would raise my child, lead my family, act as a man, as a child of God, I saw that, the love that man should have for his wife, God was just imparting to me one fold after another, and where I was thinking at one point that, I mean, my wife's very attractive, but I wasn't the first 2 years because I was looking at, all the other fish in the sea kind of thing.
Sure.
But when the Lord stepped into our relationship and he gave me such eyes, like now other women, just while I can see the beauty in God's creation, no other women even attract me anymore. I'm not attracted to them anymore by any means whatsoever because of what the passion and love that God puts in my eyes for my wife. So
it makes total sense.
The thing about us is that we didn't go about it the way the world usually has it. Is that always has to do with trying to get something from the other person, just like everybody does with the rest of the things in the world. But when God's the center of focus and you realize literally the glue that's brought and held you together, that even the love and relationship is amongst us is almost supernatural. So
sure.
I think the love story that we have is one that, if you just focus on God and his will, then he knows what's best, and not only will lead you and guide you, but will provide for you all in the same. So I had a bunch of stories about, emotions and feelings of love before I got saved. And I mean, I could tell you one after another, but not one that was pure and true love.
Right.
It was always tainted with what I could get out of it, or what I was, how it would benefit me in one way or another.
Yeah.
So that's my love story. But I do think the best love story that's out there is the one where a father sends a son to bring us all to him. I don't think there's a story out there that even comes close to like an analogy of it.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring that up because you weren't able to hear the beginning introduction, the write-up that I always do for the show. And we asked some interesting questions in that. And on the other side of the break, we're going to get into that a little bit because you just said that the greatest love story ever was God sending his son into the world. So one of the questions is, and I understand this from a worldly perspective, when, we talked last week about, the God is love. From a believer's perspective, God is love. So the question then from a non-believing perspective is, are you saying that we can't experience love without God? We feel love for other people, and we don't have a God. And so by implication, you're saying that without being in love with a God, then you can't then experience love for someone else without God playing a role in that. And to me, I'm really looking forward to getting into that after the break and talking more about that, because I want to flesh that out a little bit, because as you pointed out, Matthias, it is the greatest story of love ever, that the creator and God of this world loved us so much that he sent his son to save us all out of this prison, the prison of pain and suffering and death and all the horrible things that happen, and to reconcile us to him. So to us, to those that are believers, it's not only the greatest love story ever told, but he's the source of love. He's the source of all love. Anything good comes from him. And if it's not good, it comes from another source. So we're going to talk more about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Matthias. It's perfect timing. So thank you for that. All right. So what I'd like to do is take about a 6 or 7 minute break. And then on the other side, we're going to try to dive into some of these questions, and I'll tell my love story at the other side, and then we'll get into these questions. And I think we covered everyone else, right? I don't want to forget anybody. No, Jen's going to tell hers too, so we'll do that when we come back, because she read my mom's story and didn't share hers yet. So we'll do that too, and then we'll get into some of these questions. All right, so bear with us here on True Story Live, and we'll be back in about 6 minutes. Hang with us.
Have you been broken-hearted in this world we call home? Has it someone in your life gone and left you all alone? With your shattered dreams, you've lived your life, wondering where the hurt will end. Have you forgotten about that someone who is more than just a friend? He's the heart mender. His healing touch is so tender. Oh, his grace he freely gives to mend the hurt within his children. He's the great defender. Just turn to him and surrender. He will hear your every cry. More than all in him you'll find. He's the heart mender. Perfect word of God reveals a heart just like a mirror. As we read his promises, we'll find his message is so clear. Broken vessels can be used when in the potter's hand, to be molded and mended by the great I am. He's the the heart mender. His healing touch is so tender. Oh, His grace He freely gives to mend the hurt within His children. He's the great defender. Just turn to Him and surrender. He will hear your every cry. More than all in Him you'll find. He's the heart mender. He's the heart mender. Oh, He's the heart mender.
Hello everyone, my name is Suzanne Marr and I'm founder of Bye Bye Blue Sky, and we have a passion for the planet. Bye Bye Blue Sky is a dedicated global public environmental movement who seeks to be a voice for all living creatures and ecosystems, and to protect human health and safeguard the natural environment, air, water, and land which our sustenance depends. We use education, peaceful protest, and creative communication to expose one of the world's largest and most significant ecological threats and preeminent disasters, commonly known as climate engineering or chemtrails. Please visit our website, byebybluesky.com, and learn the truth about the sinister aerosol spraying. There are many media articles, patents, government white papers, which are available on our site, which attest to these programs. We also have awareness items, bumper stickers, t-shirts, which can be purchased, and brochures and business cards, which can be downloaded and distributed. There are a number of ongoing Bye Bye Blue Sky GoFundMe billboard campaigns in North America. The link's available on our website. I encourage everyone to donate to these billboards. A few dollars can save the planet. Please also join Bye Bye Blue Sky on our Facebook page of the same name and meet dedicated and like minds. Thank you.
You are listening to True Story Live with your host, Jay Chris. Right here on Infinite Source Broadcast Network.
All right. Thank you for staying with us during the break, and welcome back to True Story Live. And all right, we're going to get right back into it. So we're hearing love stories from the panel. So we have two left to go. Jen's story and then my story. Mine's not very long. Are you ready, Jen? Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Ready.
Okay, my love story is short. I wrote it out because I tend to not do so good when I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But it's about the love between the Creator, God, and His creation. Okay, I'm going to dive right in. As a little girl, I always loved the outdoors. Having three brothers helped in that area, and I was the only daughter. I loved my Little Ponies and Barbie stuff, but my favorite thing was to be outdoors with the boys, digging in the dirt, flipping over rocks, to see what critters lurked beneath in their own little habitats, making forts, playing pretend out in the woods. Even as I write this, I can smell the fragrance of freshly dug earth. As kids, we climbed trees, we rolled down grassy hills, landing in a heap at the base with arms and legs spread eagle, catching our breath as we watch the white puffy clouds roll by, picking out shapes, animals, and faces. Clouds, trees, and stars, I absolutely love them. I'm a little obsessed with clouds and trees and stars. If there was a college degree one could get for star, cloud, and tree observing, I would have 5 degrees in all those things because I just love them so much. As I got older and my observance of nature paralleled my own growing relationship with God, it became more intriguing, more lovely, the design of nature. And as that design, from the tiniest organism to the intricacies of how our human bodies work, my awareness of God, his design, and his love in that design became more clear to me. It sharpened, it focused where it used to be a little blurry. To me, the design and creation is unmistakable proof. We are no mistake. We aren't afterthoughts or accidents. We were carefully thought of and thought out in his plan for everything, but particularly for him and us together, our relationship with God. This to me is a love story within itself, and to me it's the biggest of love stories. God could have stopped at the creation of the oceans and land. He could have stopped at the stars, for these are all wonderful things to behold, and they don't argue and they don't sin. My God wanted relationship, a two-way street, and in all his knowing and his sheer omnipotence, he knew what would happen in the garden. He knew what would happen before the flood. He knew every step man would take in his struggle to find wholeness. We fight against the proof a creator exists. We argue with him. We curse him at times. We think we know better. We leave, we return, and some of us don't even come to him at all. And he still seeks us out. And isn't that the greatest love of all? And a love that exists and seeks out without the promise of reciprocation.
Wow.
And that's my story.
I love it. I love the ending, especially.
Yeah. And it kind of parallels with Matthias. Yeah, with God showing his love as well with his sending his son to die for us. It's a huge part of the relationship part in his love.
Oh, totally. Totally. His showing of love is not dependent on our reciprocation.
Yeah. It's still there.
When we do, that's when we're able to get into into a relationship with him, and it is so helpful and amazing and wonderful and all those other words. I mean, there really aren't words to describe it completely. But he loves us first so that we can love him, and it's just beautiful. Okay. So I'm the last one on deck, so I'm a little nervous about this. I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback. It's not a very normal love story. So, I'll just get into it. So, first time I met GJ, I was probably, maybe 11. And my grandfather took me to a cafeteria, those cafeterias where you go through the line and you get to pick out different groups of foods and put it on your tray. And they always have those desserts at the end, different little things like, like pudding and things like that, and different kinds of jellos. And I looked at all the jellos that were there, and, they had red and orange and yellow and all that. And none of those were appealing, but they had green jello right there on a plate. And it's really difficult to describe the emerald color, how it kind of shimmers and shakes when you lift it and put it on your tray. And, I was too young to do anything about it then, but that was the beginning of a lifetime relationship with JG. So, when I got old enough, it kind of started out slow. It was I'd only visit the cafeteria occasionally, and just go every once in a while. And she would always be there, always there to spend on green Jello. And I would take green Jello home, and we just spent a lot of time together. And it became a habit, just over time. It starts out slow until finally, it's just you're building like 1/10 replicas of famous monuments, Washington Monument and green Jello, and just spending all your time just molding and shaping, and that's all you ever know. So I joined some of my friends and family didn't think it was healthy for me to just spend all the time with the Jello. I mean, it's not a real relationship. It's not, it's not really meaningful. It's not fulfilling. So I joined a group, a 12-step group about my green Jello addiction. So got a lot of support. That's actually where Steve and I met, in the green Jello meeting. Right, Steve? Where's Steve?
Where'd Steve go?
The whole reason I did the whole green Jello bit was because Steve told me to do it. So I was like, there's nothing. There's no reaction whatsoever. It's just complete total silence. It's not funny if there's not a laugh track or something.
Chris, I thought you were being serious, man.
You thought I was being serious? See, that's good. That's good. If you thought I was being serious, that's good. That means it was sort of believable. You must have been like awestruck then.
No, I started to laugh, and then I was like, oh God, what if I shouldn't be laughing? Like, what if this is for real?
Yeah, no, you were supposed to laugh. But
okay. I did. I just muted it.
I'm just joking.
Oh my.
Steve, you left me hanging there, buddy. You left me hanging on.
Steve.
I'm sorry. I had to like
Steve. Hey, Steve, put your microphone in front of your mouth.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It fell up. No problem. No problem.
Some heavy breathing again.
No.
Jen thought I was being serious, so I guess that's worth something. Thanks, Steve.
Somebody on the chat was like,
that was great.
No, it took me a second. It took me a couple minutes. I was like, wait a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about it,
Jello.
Yeah, it was a conversation Steve and I had, and I was just making a joke, and I was just saying that that I love green Jello, and it was an addiction, and started out slow and cafeteria and got green Jello,
making monuments.
And the way that it wiggled was just enticing, and you couldn't believe at how beautiful it was.
Yeah.
The way the light shined and reflected through the Jello, and then when you ate it, it just melted on your tongue, and it just made your belly feel so good, and
yeah, and all that could have happened.
You just couldn't get over how delicious and lovely this Jello was.
Yeah.
And
okay,
that all could have happened, Steve.
He had me rolling.
Yeah.
Crips,
he had me
Crips,
rolling.
were you at the
dying.
Were you at the Piccadilly? Was this the place where you met green Jello?
Morrison's cafeteria. Actually,
about
the green Jello is true. See, the thing is, my grandpa did take me to the cafeteria, and I loved it because you got to pick out your own food. My parents were very restrictive with my menu, and so when I went out, I got to try things they wouldn't let me have at home, and Jello with whipped cream on the top was one of them. So I really, really liked having it. So whenever he said we're going to the cafeteria,
I have to ask, did this cafeteria have Jello and straight up in a bowl, or did they cut it in the cubes and stack them?
This particular cafeteria, it was straight up Jell-O, like on a plate with whipped cream, a dollop of whipped cream on the top. But yes, I have seen them in the cubes. Yeah,
that's the best.
Those are better because you can just suck the one cube in.
I know. That's awesome. What I was gonna say. You're like.
Yeah. Yeah. JW in the chat room says. I know. See, JW in the chat room says, you folks are odd, to say the least, and that's coming from me. So...
Odd is good.
Yeah, that's good. Odd is good. All right. So that just joking about the Jell-O, guys. Just Steve was supposed to kind of put a laugh track behind it, and then everyone would know I was joking. And then I could make it. I could drag it out a little bit and make it. But I'm just telling this.
I was letting you roll with it.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything. That's the one time, Steve, that you should have said something when you weren't supposed to. Jerk.
That made it even worse. I was like, this is for real. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is for real. Oh no. Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. Good grief.
Oh my.
Jessica Dallas says there's no love, only people who made a mistake and ended up having to put up with one another. Later in life they end up hating each other. Such is life.
Oh no, that's not good.
Well, some people feel that way.
That can happen.
It does happen. It happens a lot of time. We live in a tough world, and we know that we did a show where we talked about the divorce rates, and it's over 52%, and that's not just non-believers.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us into our topic a little bit. Which is the emotion of love. And the question that keeps coming up is, can people have a love relationship without knowing the source of all love? If they don't have a connection with God, is it implausible that a non-believer can feel similarly within their own realm as believers do when they have a right relationship with God first, and they then have a relationship with each other? It's sort of like a triangle. So that's the question for the panel. I'd like to get into that a little bit. Does anyone have a thought about that and would like to tackle it?
I don't know if we want to go into this facet that we had kind of delved in with Glenn on a private chat, but talking about spirit, the spirit within us and the spiritual connection a couple has, and if that's not there, that can cause some problems, but also the facet of us having a spirit and feeling fulfilled and nurturing that spirit. And if our individual spirit isn't nurtured, that can affect the relationship as well.
Sure.
Just feeling dead and just hating everything. It's just not good.
No, and certainly not everybody's love story is good. In fact, my real love story it's not over. So in that way I have hope, but I grew up with, kind of my parents helped at least give me an idea of what true love looks like. And it was through a biblical perspective. And I'll never forget this. We were at Myrtle Beach, and my parents brought my sister and I out. We were both, I was probably maybe 15, maybe 14, somewhere in there. So Shannon would have been 12. And they brought us both out into the living room and told us that they knew that we would eventually get married and want to have families. And they thought it was a good idea to start praying for our unknown spouse, for the person that we would later meet and marry. And I did that. I thought that was beautiful. And I often would, especially at the beach, I would go and pray, and I would just pray for this person that I, didn't even know yet and had never met before, and just, ask God to prepare the way for her and take care of her. And be close to her, etc. And I did that for a very long time. And, you know, then you become a teenager and, you know, the idea of love is everywhere. It's in music, it's in movies, it's in novels and poems. And I mean, it's just everywhere. And there's many different versions of love. But, you know, when you're thinking about a love relationship that leads to marriage and having a family, that's the kind of love that I'm referring to. And I think it's easy to differentiate between the different kinds of love, but even in those things that I mentioned, they're all about it. They're all about it. And it's a big seller. And I wanted it. I prayed about it. I wanted it. There was not one part of me that thought that I would be prevented from having that desire. And I was, unfortunately, though, I was deathly afraid of abandonment and betrayal. I'd seen it happen with my parents, you know, who at age 18, I was 18 when they got divorced. And that was devastating to me. And I'm sure it affected the way I felt about relationships in general. So I didn't date a whole lot. I didn't pursue relationships. And mainly it was because I was incredibly afraid of the pain that I would feel if I ever were to find someone and then they just left, like I was seeing happen, like I said, in my own family. I mean, there was more to that story. My parents, I mean, it wasn't just that someone left, but you get the idea. I mean, people get married for a reason. I mean, if you talk to any divorced person and you say, well, you know, you never really liked each other from the start, that's never the story. The story is that they fell in love and, you know, they had this wonderful time and, you know, they got married, you know, except in the cases where two people are drunk and they go to Las Vegas. So, I mean, you know, if it's a legitimate love story where people, you know, spend the time to get to know each other and they get married, all their dreams are going to be fulfilled, and that's what they set out to do. So, I mean, there's a lot to fill in there, but I waited a very long time, and I waited for a special person, and I wanted to be in a godly relationship, and I thought that's what I was getting into. And unfortunately, I knew her for 6 years, but we weren't even married for 3. And you know, I am not in a place to place all the blame on her or to say it was, you know, none of it was my fault, but I was completely, it was like someone took a brick and hit me in the side of the face. I mean, because there wasn't any lead up to it. It wasn't like, you know, we're having trouble and we're struggling and I feel it coming and I'm wondering, you know, what's going to happen. It just came out of nowhere. There was a separation letter in the drawer while she was out of town taking care of her nieces. And I felt like I just slept on the ice and I'm laying on the floor. I mean, just did not see it coming. So what's interesting in all the preparation and all the praying and all the really, really desiring it from my heart and then not being the, you know, romantic kind of love that I was looking forward to, but I wanted to really be, you know, sanctioned by God. And, you know, I wanted him to be at the top and us to be at the bottom and for us to each have a relationship with God first and then with the other. And even though it didn't turn out that way, because my mistake was, you know, I thought that we were doing enough. You know, we prayed together, we went to church, you know, we talked about things. You know, it wasn't like either one of us was completely and totally shut off from each other. And I thought that we had things going pretty well. But the truth is, if someone doesn't share with you and they keep everything to themselves, there's no way for the other person to know that there's any kind of problem. I mean, this was during the recession, so I was working a lot and it was very stressful. But when I came home, I was with her. I mean, I spent all my time with her. You know, I thought that was important. If anyone knows the love languages, one of her love languages was words of affirmation and quality time. So when I would come home after a long day of work, I felt like I was choosing to spend my time with her as proof of my love for her, as well as the words of affirmation. I was doing my duty. But in the end, she wanted to leave the marriage. And so the very thing that I had avoided for so long, the abandonment and betrayal, was exactly what I went through. And it was devastating for me. And I went through a long period of grieving, not necessarily the loss of her, but just the idea of that I built marriage up to be. I thought it was the thing that I was missing in my life, and it was going to, shave off the rough edges, and rather than looking to God to do that. And I didn't understand about God what I do now, which is that a person that has a God-shaped hole that he thinks is full and it's not, and you think that another person is going to do that for you, it's never going to work. And it didn't work for me. So it took me a very, very long time just to get over the pain and the hurt and all the stuff that I felt. So I can certainly relate to someone that has the view when they think about love, they look at it as, two people just get together and then, they think they're in love, but they're not. And then it ends up ending in hurt. I mean, we see that a lot. There's plenty of people that go through it. And
yeah,
the thing is, my story's not over yet, because I'm open to it again. I mean, I was closed off for a long time. I didn't reach out. I sequestered myself. I mean, there's, to a certain extent, I mean, I still had a handful of friends and family that were always there for me, and I still had a relationship with them. But in general, I shut off kind of from the rest of the world for a while. And certainly when it comes to relationships, romantic relationships, I wasn't looking for that. In fact, I didn't think it would ever happen again for quite some time. And I still don't know how it would happen. I mean, there are so many things that have changed even now, and what I know about the world, which makes the pool even smaller of what I'm looking for. I mean, they would first have to be, a believer. I mean, the question that we're facing is, can someone that doesn't believe in God have the capacity to be able to have a deep spiritual connection with someone else? And we know that if a non-believer and a believer meet, what's the first problem there in that scenario? I mean, you're already not agreeing on what for me is a core value that I hold dear. And from my experience, I even thought that the person I was marrying had that, but I didn't dig deep enough, because you can say that you're a Christian. Anybody can say they're a Christian, but being a Christian isn't just going to church and saying prayers with your spouse. I mean, there are a lot of other things that enter into it, like, like loyalty and if you make a vow to stay with someone until death do you part. I mean, that's a vow. So if you're in a relationship, on my end, if you're in a relationship with someone that's going to leave at some point and you don't have any security in that, and in my case, I was working and I wasn't worried about the relationship because I had assumed wrongly that I didn't have to worry about her just saying in the middle of a tough time that they were just going to leave. So it's a hurtful thing to go through, but fortunately, because of my beliefs, that was the only thing I had when I was in that place, that dark, lonely place that happens when you have just experienced your worst nightmare you ever could possibly imagine, other than being sucked into a icy river and not being able to get back through the ice. That's my worst one right there. But other than that, it would be the scenario that I'm talking about. So there's drowning in an icy river and you can't get through that ice, and then second would be what I went through, which is the choosing someone finally, and being betrayed and abandoned. Excuse me. So it's not sad though. I learned a lot from it, and it's not over. While I still breathe, I still have a chance of something coming from it, and I worship a great and awesome God that he may have something for me in that area at some point. But if not, here's the thing. Regardless of what's happened to me in the past, or if I'm single the rest of my life and I never get the deep abiding love that I would love and enjoy having with someone in this realm, on this earth, it does not mean that I cannot have a life filled with joy. And I feel like that I'm learning how to do that without being in a relationship with someone else, so that if I ever had the opportunity again to have that, I would be open to it, and I would be able to love from a different place than I was before, because I no longer fear the abandonment and the betrayal. I mean, I know that it's always a possibility, but if I were going to go into a relationship, I would, before we even said a single vow, I would have to make sure, okay, do you know what this means? If you're saying,
yeah,
I mean, it seems ridiculous, but if you're saying in front of God, and
just so we're clear,
yeah, just so we're clear, you saying till death do us part means that either you die or I die. Otherwise, there's no breakup, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I ignored a lot of red flags because I was ready to be married. I was 36, and I'd waited long enough, and I preempted God's plan for my life, and I paid the consequences. That's the way I look at it, honestly. And people can look at it whatever way they want, but that's my take on it. And I learned from it, and he was there for me. And if I didn't have him, I don't know what I would have done. There's no way for me to know how that would have felt to go through that from that perspective. So that's my unfinished love story. There's a lot more, and that was really, really a condensed version. But I agreed to do one. Everyone on the panel did it, so I had to do it. I wish that it was more, a happier ending and stuff. But we live in a world sometimes where the way that they present love is a fairy tale, and you find out that it is not a fairy tale, not what we experience. Matthias had a great story, and he has an abiding love with his wife, and it's God ordained, and that's an ideal. And then on the other hand, you have Glenn from Australia and his relationship with Sandra, and they have an authentic relationship, a deep spiritual connection with each other. And even through hard times, I saw that Glenn shared in the chat about what happened to Sandra, that she had a stroke. So it's open for discussion, and that has caused problems for Sandra. And I've heard stories where that happens to a spouse, or paralyzation or something else, and the spouse takes off. So to have Glenn, who doesn't believe in God, to have the courage and willingness, and it's not even a question for him to stay with his wife after she's had a devastating stroke. Is that not an example of love? Is that not an example? And
yeah, it is.
So that's open for the panel to discuss. We have about 20 minutes left, and all the stories are out, all the stories we have. And so I would like to dive into that. Does anyone want to comment on the question, or I can repeat the question, but is it plausible that a non-believer can have a deep spiritual connection without knowing God? That's the bottom line of it. Brenda, can a non-believer have a relationship and a spiritual connection and experience love without knowing God?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say on a deeper level, because God is love. I mean, he's the epitome of love. I would say that would probably be difficult. I mean, I hear Glenn's story, and he and his wife have that deep spiritual connection, but I believe because God is, I mean, he's love. He's the epitome of love. I don't know if someone could fully understand what that love is until they have embraced the love of Christ in their life, where that their hearts have been transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. I hope I'm not sounding like devil's advocate or anything, but
No, you're fine. You're fine. So earlier when you told your story, I just want to do a quick follow-up. So I want to keep it short, but you know, you had said you've been married 16 years. Now, I'm sure most people would probably say that you've learned a lot in 16 years, and you're not the naive person that you may have been all those years ago. Would you say that you have the same level of love for your husband? Is it more, or what were you at with that after 16 years?
I would say it's deeper. It's not as superficial. In the beginning, it was based more on romance and goosebumpy feelings and attraction on the more on the superficial sense. But now that we've gone through a lot, through our arguments and our fights and going through different things in our lives, I believe it's a lot deeper. Now, I know when you're married for 16 years, it's easy to get lazy. And it's funny because I was just talking to my husband. My husband's gone for 2 weeks up in Minneapolis, which is actually kind of, in a sense, I miss him dearly, but it's kind of nice because we get that individual time where we can recoup and focus on what we can maybe fix when when we come back. We were just talking about that. And we were just talking about really getting back to praying for one another, because it's so easy, especially when you have kids, to have your individual time, but to forget that couple time of spending time with the Lord. We're just so busy doing our own thing, we get tired. So we really want to get back to doing that.
Sure.
Yeah, things have changed over time. I love him more, of course. Yeah.
Well, and at first, you have all the chemicals going. We all know that. We talked about that on a previous show. I mean, this is something that they study. They know that there's the endorphins that come when we meet someone and we're in love, and we have all that. And I think it can last, longer for some people than others if they have other elements involved as well. But I think we have enough information to know that if you're getting into a relationship with someone and it is just based on the love feeling that you have when you first met, it may not last very long if they're not based on anything deeper than that. I mean, I think that's been proven enough. I think most people understand that, but yet it seems like it doesn't stop people from getting married or working harder at staying married when we live in a society where it's basically just throwaway marriages. I mean, that's not even really an argument. Someone can't argue with the statement that we live in a society of throwaway marriages. I mean, here in my state, you only have to be not living in the same residence for a year and you're granted a divorce.
Yeah.
So,
true.
Anyone else want to comment? Is it possible, from your perspective, for a non-believer to experience love without having a relationship with the source of all love?
I mean, it depends on how you define love. And so,
well, you started this before. So
right.
How we define love, we're talking about a marriage relationship with someone, a love relationship, as you would have in a marriage.
There can be, love, I think most succinctly put, would be, sacrificial. And so in that sense, that's what, that's exactly what Glenn is doing, even with his wife. It's what my mom did with her husband, with my dad, with him Parkinson's, and my mom's certainly believe in a works-based gospel. So, she's just as much as a non-believer as somebody who just rejects the Bible. But
is that right? That's a separate point to talk about. But yeah, okay.
But the part about to love someone, I believe true love. Well, see, love is defined with so many different words in the Bible, because God understands that there's so many different aspects. It has to be defined. The American language, I love a hamburger, or I love my mom, or I love my wife. They all have love, and they all mean totally different things.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if it's not helping somebody come to the truth of what Jesus Christ did on the cross, even if it's sacrificial, it's not real love. So it can look like it because love is sacrificial. I get it. But if it's not pointing them to the one that will let them live forever, if it looks good and still helps people and makes them feel secure in on their way to eternal death, it's not love. It may look all fluffy and give feelings and like emotions and all sorts of different things, but if you can break it down to its basic origins, is it going to help bring somebody to the truth of the gospel? Yes or no? Love or not?
Well, for a non-believer, they're not thinking about the gospel at all. So
I understand that.
They're not,
that's why I go to saying, if it's not, so that's why, so if it's fluffy and makes them feel tingly inside, and it still actually keeps them not even thinking about the gospel, then they can call it love if they want to. But it's replacing, it's giving something to look to other than the true love of God coming down. So if it points to it, it is love. If it points away from it, or can keep people not even realizing, like, that's the point. People get so caught up in this world. Satan's got, he's very subtle and cunning, but he's got so much going on that if it weren't for God seeking and drawing all men, nobody would even have time to think of the things that matter most.
Right.
So
that's true. There are plenty of distractions for sure.
Right, and sometimes we are those distractions. And like I said, when I was, I thought I loved my daughter. You know, I had a love for her. I had what the world would call love. But everything I was doing was leading her away from the truth of the Bible. Right. So I was not loving her. In fact, while I was doing everything the world said to do, I can look back with the spiritual eyes that I have now and realize I was actually hating her. I was causing her, I was setting up a life for her that would lead her to death. And in that, even though it felt tingly and it was all good and there was all these great little baby shows, I was not loving my daughter in which the way I thought I was.
Well, I certainly know what you mean, but I'm not sure that, I'm not sure a non-believer would be able to make any sense of that at all. They would say that you're crazy because, of course, you love your daughter, you know, because you didn't lead her to Christ, right?
Well, she was only 2, but I was everything that I was putting in front of her was leading her or not. Real quick, the link won't work right now, but for the next 10 minutes, Peter, you can call the number that's on the screen here, the 319-527-6092, and you can press 1, and then you can call in real quick. But the link to the broadcast doesn't really work yet.
Yeah. So the number, the guest call-in number is 319-527-6092. So Peter, if you want to call and share something, now would be the time to do it. We did ask last week for all those that listened if they wanted to be part of the show to send their stories and stuff, but we didn't get a response to that. So we'll keep trying.
Real quick, just to be a little bit more biblical on it so people understand. We thought that spanking was a bad thing. We had been indoctrinated by the world thinking that what the Bible teaches as raising up a child was bad. And when I started believing the Bible and we started doing the things the Lord says and reading, it actually says if you don't chasten your child, you hate them.
Oh, yeah. And speaking from that text, yes.
Right. So I realized that, here I was thinking I'm showing them love by not chastening them, or her, because I only had one at the time. But in all actuality, I wasn't showing her love by not doing that. Not according to what God says. According to what God says was I was showing her hate.
Okay. Yeah. All right. With the time that we have left, does anyone else want to answer the question? What about you, Steve? You want to try to tackle that one? Can a non-believer have a spiritual, deep, abiding love with someone without knowing God? That's the question.
I will have to tackle that question in a spiritual, that is really hard to answer with a definitive yes, because of the fact that I believe that those who are not born again, those who are not true believers, that they are spiritually dead. That although they have, their soul, they are spiritually dead because their soul is dead and not regenerate, but they have the spirit that God gave them that is disconnected from their soul, that is in them, keeping them alive, giving them a conscience. So can that spirit to spirit connect? I suppose, because on an innate level, we are all creations of God. But I'd really rather address it from this point, in that in either the Greek or Hebrew, there are 5 different words for love. One means love of God. One means brotherly love. One means romantic love. And I don't remember what the other two are. Love for a neighbor.
I don't.
Yeah,
I understand all that. I get that. I'm not saying you're wrong. But.
What I'm trying to address is that 4 out of 5 are possible for a non-believer, except the 5th being the love of God.
Okay. Well, that's the answer then.
Romantic love, brotherly love, friendship, romance, sexual love.
Yeah,
I believe
we know
is the
that's
5th
possible.
one, and love for your neighbor. So all those kinds of things are available, and because we are God's creation, His attributes reside in every single one of us. Just like when an artist paints, every artist paints differently, and you could see the artist in the painting or in their music, that kind of thing. So yes, in some sense, people are capable of love, but the kind of love that Matthias is talking about, that is the love of God. That to me is only available between 2 true believers.
Okay, I think that's a fair response. I mean, I totally understand where everyone's coming from, and I'm not disagreeing with your point. I'm trying to look at it from a non-believer's perspective. When they hear us say things like that, it seems crazy to them to imply that they can't be in. I mean, you're basically telling someone, like if it's Glenn, for instance. So if you're basically saying to Glenn, you don't really have a deep spiritual love for Sandra. You can't possibly have it if you don't believe in God. I mean, that's what he hears. So that's not what we mean to imply. Obviously, he loves Sandra and Sandra loves him. They have a love. Now, I think it's helpful, Steve, the way you explained it, as far as they can have different forms of love, but not the full abiding love that comes from first having a relationship with God. Now, I have talked about this with Glenn, but he's not. I think he understands it, but he still keeps asking the question, and that is that, you know, God gives love and grace, and it's in some situations it exists in the world, and it exists inside us. The spirit that he breathed into us gives us the capability of responding in certain ways to certain things. Anyone can respond to a song that they hear and they're touched somehow, whether you're a Christian or not. You know, a piece of art, like you mentioned, looking at a piece of art. We can be moved by a piece of art somewhere. We can have an emotion or a feeling inside us that is not coming from our flesh. It's coming from inside us. And especially in the poets that have been around that didn't necessarily believe in God, we hear in the way that they write about their love for, I mean, yes, of course, it's a different kind of love, but I'm saying to that person, it's not any different. You know, it's not any different to the person that doesn't believe in God because they don't know him or understand him. But the spirit that God gave is a gift, and love is of God, whether they recognize it as being from him or not. It doesn't change who the source of all love is if you don't accept who did it. Just like with creation. It doesn't change who created the earth the way that it was created. That if everyone denies it and doesn't believe it, and in fact goes to great trouble to try to set up a false narrative for the purpose of hiding God in the first place, it doesn't change who the creator is. Not one bit. So a person can say they don't believe in God, but they're using the mechanisms that God set up within us to give us the capability of responding in an emotional or spiritual way. But I would agree that I don't think it's the same. I know it's not the same. A relationship between two believers that are putting God first is going to be different than two non-believers that don't have a relationship with God, period. So we just have a little over a minute left. So I want to thank everyone in the chat for tuning in, and everyone that's listening on Blog Talk. Thank you so much. Thank you for my panel, everyone that is involved, and you took the time to share your stories, and that is incredibly touching to me. And I appreciate you guys so much. So next week we will do Love Actually Part 3, The Journey. Love Actually Part 3, The Journey is next week. So guys from the chat room, definitely if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please send it to the emails. I will give them to you again. truestorylive.crips@gmail or talkingdoctrine@gmail.com. Either one of those, one of us will get together on those, and you can be a part of the show. And we are going to do a show coming up soon where we'll engage more openly with the chat. I try to do that from time to time, and we'll continue to involve the chat more and more. So for this week, this episode, Love Actually Part 2, The Emotion, thanks again for being here, and tune in next week for True Story Live. Until then, have a great week. Good night. Alrighty.
Great show.
Well, great show.
Yeah. That was awesome. Lots of good stuff. Except the green jello fiasco where Steve left me hanging out in the breeze like a hanging man.
I didn't even know that was
One of my boots fell off.
I wasn't sure how long you could keep it going, and I was trying to, you know,
if you would have laid down a
straight face along with you,
Steve, I could have kept going. I could have just kept it going, but there was nothing. It was like bombing on stage at an open mic night. Okay, literally, that's what it was like. You didn't partner with me, Steve. You didn't partner with me. Okay? All right.
Talk it over beforehand.
You asked me. You called in and you said you got to tell the green jello story. I said, okay, Steve, I'll tell the green jello story.
Yeah,
and that's the
I
one
thought you were going to
time
start out with it, and then like
nothing.
Hilarious.
Oh gosh.
It would have been more hilarious if everyone knew it was a gag. Okay, it would have totally worked.
I don't know though. I think it was pretty funny thinking that it could have been true.
Yeah, see, but that it could have that element even with Steve laughing lightly in the background, right? I could still keep the same act up.
I don't
with
know.
him
The
laughing.
silence was deafening. It was pretty loud.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then once you start too in show business, because I've done a lot of live stage, and even if you're bombing, you have to finish, right? That's the thing.
Oh yeah.
So you have to have an ending. So I'm like, how do I end this? This is like ridiculous. Because I do have I can put up with a lot of embarrassment, especially in a production of some sort. I mean, I've forgotten lines and just been embarrassed by that and not knew where I was supposed to be, and someone had to bail me out, in the early days of doing live stage performances. But you get better at it, and then you just ad lib until you remember what you're supposed to say. No problem now, but certainly starting out, and some people are definitely afraid to do that, to speak in public or to do a play or to read something, whatever.
I'm mad I didn't do my skit on love.
You have a love skit, do you?
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah. Glenn says at least it wasn't not red jello.
Oh boy.
Red jello. Well,
Glenn, I wasn't into the red jello, just the shimmering emerald goodness of the green jello on the plate, just translucent and lovely and soft and gentle.
You know what?
Had to have been around St. Patrick's Day.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole other topic of conversation, probably.
What are you doing over there, green jello? Get in my belly.
I'm doing all right. Just looking for my butter lucky charm.
I found them over there. There's no bowl in the back with some milk. Enjoy.
So funny.
All right.
What were we saying, Brenda?
Yeah, Brenda.
Do you know what Jello's made out of? I'm just teasing.
Oh
no!
You might not eat it again.
Don't.
No, I'll still eat it.
You will? Okay.
I know it has
you find out.
Yeah, it's got like animal fat and stuff in it.
Wait, it's like animal.
It comes from the bones.
Made from
the bones, but it's really healthy.
Yeah.
Wait, is it really?
I've never had
collagen,
not
right?
once in jello.
Yeah.
Gelatin, not collagen.
Okay,
collagen.
There you go.
It has really firm
Collagen's
surface
good for you
in the
though,
jello
too.
because of the collagen. They inject it to make the smile last longer.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
You like red jello there, Jen?
Yeah, strawberry, cherry, raspberry blue. Maybe sometimes red.
Yeah. Orange is okay.
You know what? Okay, I have to tell you my jello story. This is terrible. Okay. My friend, when we were in like second grade, this is how hard up we were for sweets. Like none of us had like sweets in our house. We would literally
you had the same thing.
Yes. And like how like rich people would buy pixie sticks? Well, like the poor people would
Rich
eat
people.
Jello out of the box.
Oh no! Oh no! Jello, I never did that.
So good. It's just so delicious. Oh my gosh, how bad was that for us? Holy crap.
Jello out of the.
Not good.
I did try Kool-Aid like that once. That didn't turn out
Oh my
too well.
gosh, no, that's really bitter, or not bitter, sour.
Go
Yeah.
bed.
Talk about a sugar high.
I'm not ready for bed yet.
Jello.
Me neither. Oh, do you know, Jen, you said you ate the Jello dustings from the box?
Well, yeah, like
you,
out of
you
the
wouldn't mix it
little
with water?
bag, the paper bag. No,
Oh,
just like the powder. We're like, Pixie Sticks. Or
Ew,
those,
Pixie Sticks. Hello, what?
Well, you know the iced tea mix then in the can?
Yes, I've done that
I used
too.
to sneak in my friend's cabinet
did it
and
all.
eat it with a spoon. And my friend's like, "What are you doing? Don't eat my iced tea."
Oh my
like
gosh.
the lemonade, the Crystal Light lemonade. You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
What was
Oh
that
yeah,
other candy? What was the candy with the pouches that were all connected together with the two candy sticks that you
Fun
could
Dip.
like lick and
Fun Dip,
Fun Dip, yeah.
Fun Dip?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the rich kids candy. Yeah.
Yep.
We didn't have
Rich
any of
kid candy.
Rich kid.
We were rich
Like
kids,
2
but
cents.
occasionally I had enough to plop down for a Fun Dip. Or
Or candy buttons.
like I can't imagine how poor you would have to be to not be able to.
I'm so
afford.
joking, you guys. I'm so
Yeah, I
joking.
know.
We had enough money to buy
Like,
those, but we had like no
of
gas
course.
stations or candy stores anywhere near us. We're like, oh my gosh, we need sugar.
Oh, you're funny.
Oh, no.
All right. So next week we're talking about the journey in love, actually, part 3, and then we'll move on from that.
How do you spell consciously?
CONCIOSULY.
That's how it is. Okay, thank you. That was the one letter I hadn't tried yet. I'm like, what?
Oh, okay.
My mind's
There you go.
blanking. I'm tired. Sorry. Did you see the question in our chat there that Glenn asked to pose to us?
No, I kept looking and nobody said anything in there, so I
like on
quit going over
Facebook
there.
chat? Facebook chat,
It's
please?
1, 2, 3 above.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Please pose that to the panel for consensus.
Above
Okay,
that.
so
Do you want
Matthias
me to read
says
it, or
cannot
do you
have.
want- Okay. Good.
Matthias says cannot have love without God. Jason says whether a non-believer knows it or not, God is an element in all human love. So which is it? Is my relationship with Sandra godless or underpinned by God, only we don't know about it?
Well, no. I guess I was. I guess I didn't say it correctly. There's
I was trying to.
Right. There's aspects of love that everyone can have if it's sacrificial, and what Glenn is doing is certainly sacrificial. Now that's an aspect of love, but here's the thing: I think that if 2 unbelievers have such a fairy tale type spiritual connection, love outside of God, and it leads them to always reject God. Now, was that love in of itself loving one to another? Even though they both were, in it causing the other person, maybe they're helping promote, this Bible thing's stupid. I'm glad we've got each other. Yeah, this Bible thing's stupid. I'm glad we got each other. So they've got this great love connection between each other, and everything else is great. Like they do all sorts of things for each other, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if in that relationship that is supposedly love, it is worldly love, I say yes, I agree with that. But when it comes to biblical love, it would be the person who meets them on the street and tells both of them, hey, look, if you don't repent, change your mind of what you believe about the Bible. And if you don't seek God and become his child, you're going to end up dying the second death. While some people might think that that's rude, but actually I think that that's real love. That's because that's something that is hard to do. It's hard to approach somebody with such truth. And it's tricky in doing it in a way that people will respond in a way that they'll actually listen to you. So you got to meet them where they're at with everything. And so, you know, when it comes to love, what love is, God is love. God is good. Anybody who thinks that they can love without God, they probably also think that they are good.
Yeah.
But those of us who have rested in Christ, we know that we're wretched, that there's nothing good in us, and anything good that I do is actually of God anyway. And so, you know, Jesus said there are none good, none but God.
That's right.
And so if we are using the Bible as our standard, then I've got to say, if it leads people away from the truth of the gospel, if it leads people away from eternal life and leads them towards eternal death in any way, shape, or form, it is the opposite of love.
So what would Glenn say in answer to that? I wonder.
I posted part of Matthias' as fast as I could answer. Hopefully you guys didn't mind. And then Glenn says, the good thing is I think he missed the word, each of us only has our opinions. I don't know what he means by that. Sorry,
the good thing is each of us only has our opinion. Yeah. You know, here's the thing. It's going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, I didn't expect that we would do this episode and then we would be able to answer that question ultimately, because you're trying to get someone that has never felt that to say that what they feel isn't as vibrant as it could be if you added that extra element of connection to the creator of all things and to the source of all love. Matthias, you're very right. We know we're wretched without God. I certainly know that about myself, and that's even with having God in my life and choosing to ignore him to some extent. I know that I'm capable of very, very wicked things without being in right relationship with him. I know what I'm capable of. He allowed me to see that in myself for the purpose of allowing me to feel wretched and know that. But if a person has never seen it, I think it's even more difficult for them to come to God if they think that they're fine. They think that they're, you know, above reproach and they're kind to others and they pay their taxes, whatever things you want to enter in there that go along with someone being good. So if Matthias, if you were to say to someone, yeah, you're wretched without God, they look at you, give you the crazy look, you know, like, what are you talking about? I'm not wretched. I'm a good guy. You're absolutely right. If they don't see themselves like that, then it's going to be hard for them to say that they need to repent from unbelief to belief. I mean,
and that's a God thing probably too, Jason.
Yeah, totally.
Because Glenn said, "Oh, go ahead." He was answering.
No, go ahead, Brenda.
Oh, he said, Steve was asking what doesn't make sense about God, and he says, Glenn says, the idea of a creator and eternal life, it makes no sense. And then just Steve's asking more questions. Yeah,
he doesn't want to live forever. We've had this conversation.
Oh wow, really?
He doesn't. He's like, you live now. This is the time you have.
That makes sense for somebody who doesn't understand what the Bible tells us. What the Bible tells us about, or about eternal life, or about the new heaven and new earth.
Yeah.
If you're looking at this world and you're saying, I don't want to live forever, that's actually a good thing. Because most lost people are looking to live forever in this wretched, nasty world. That's actually what Luciferian is. That's what Satan's trying to do. He wants the God just to give him this realm.
Oh, totally. They want to keep the bodies they already have augmented with technology so that they don't have to face death or the creator that made them. Absolutely, that's correct.
Exactly. So him looking at this wretched world and saying he doesn't want to live forever, that's actually a good thing. But I don't want to live forever in this place, and I'm not going to. But I am going to live forever in a place where there is no sorrow, there is no sin, there's no tears. There won't even be night or time. Like, we can't fathom. Jesus said it hasn't come into our hearts or our minds the things that God has for them that love him. There's an untold story that we just can't even fathom. And in that, I can't wait to live forever.
Well, I think, Matthias, too, along those lines, wanting heaven is an awesome thing. I was just talking to my mom about this the other day. But we can want heaven, but do we want, I think you talked about this, do we want Christ? And would we want heaven without Christ? That's a good question to ask ourselves. I'm like, So heaven's a good thing. There's a lot of people that don't know Christ that want heaven. But do we want God? And only God can do that. And I think we've talked about that before.
Right. Yeah. We know a couple people who are seeking the truth, and the main thing that's coming down for them is that they're trying to get to heaven, not get to know God.
Yeah.
And one's the reaction of the other. And if you try to put the cart before the horse, that is the epitome of putting yourself in the equation of salvation.
Yeah. Then you have the workers.
Correct. Yeah. And they just get stuck in it.
Yeah. And it's going to be unfortunate for them. I mean, they're working, they're thinking that it's the works that's going to get them there, and they have no relationship with God. And he's going to tell them that. I know I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that at the end of this horrible life, I stand before God and realize that I'm in the wrong line, and have it be because I didn't have a relationship with him, but I did things of my own power and expected that to get me there. You know, even if I did it in his name, you know, that's what they'll say, because it means that a lot of them did it in his name. They did all these wonderful things in his name. And then in the end, he'll say, I never knew you. Depart from me, workers of iniquity. I don't want that. I don't want to be that person, because I can imagine the absolute terror and fright that they must feel when they realize that they had it wrong.
Yeah. Amen.
Now, for someone like Glenn, here's where I want to give Glenn credit, and that is that he doesn't have any interest in eternal life. He doesn't have any interest or need for God. And although I wish that he would, give it a chance, give it a shot, and ask God to show him that he's real. And maybe someday he will, but whether he does or doesn't, whether he does or doesn't, what's that?
That was me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say that Paula was just saying that if he really loves his wife, then what he'll do is he'll ask God in all sincerity and all humility, and because it's not really just for him. He may not want to, but what if hell is real? Would he really want his wife? Does he love her? Does he want to be part of making it to where she goes to hell and then dying eternally as well? If he really does love her, whether he believes it or not, is he going to humbly reason with God to come to an understanding, honestly, not just going through superficial movements, but really trying to get to know God, like what we talk about on all of our broadcasts. And if he truly loves her, then he will take that time and that effort and that honesty and humility and take it straight to God and say, if I'm supposed to reason with you, show me how my sins, they may be as scarlet. You said you'd make them white as snow. Make me understand the way that you said I would if I was seeking you. Take him at his word. But actually, him doing that is a force for love for his wife. If he truly loves her, would he really want to be part of what's helping keep her away from eternal life?
Mm. Okay. Well, there you have it, Glenn.
And then
I think
also, Peter. Oh, sorry, Peter. We did address you. You might have stepped away. The phone number is on the screen. You can call that and press 1. You can still get in the phone call right now. But yeah, nobody took your request down. It's just you missed it. Call the number on the screen and you can share it with us. But hurry up, because we're not too far from ending the whole broadcast.
That's correct. I'm not going to go the whole hour tonight, although I do enjoy that when we do. Last week was a hoot. We used up every bit of time that we had on one end.
That's awesome.
That was funny. Yeah, that was my fault. We got it all straightened out. Warwolf Ordnance says, I'm so sick of people teaching lordship salvation. I guess that just came out of nowhere. I don't know. It wasn't really.
I think that's Kip. Is that Kip, guys? Is that
Warwolf Ordnance?
That's Kip from D13. Is that Kip, Matthias?
Well, he was in here earlier with D13.
That's
Kip.
That's both.
He's doing a switcheroo. Yeah, we're not teaching lordship here, bro.
He's not saying we're teaching lordship. He knows we're not.
He just says it. That's me, Kip. Okay.
But yeah,
I'm with you though.
Ammo. Business.
I'm totally with you, Kip.
Yeah, we agree with you. Yep.
I love that guy, man. That video that he did, Ezekiel's Wheel, dude.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
Right.
Listen. That thing came to me at a time when I was right in the middle of looking at all the flat Earth stuff and all the information, and gosh, man, it blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I've gone back and watched it more than once too. It wasn't just that one time, but I was on my knees with that video. So we haven't met yet. I don't, unfortunately, Kip, but I just wanted to give that to you since you're listening in the chat room. So thanks for that.
Yeah. And I think I posted it months after you probably watched it, Grips. And
yeah,
you were like,
I've seen you post
I was like, holy cow, This thing is amazing. Blew my mind open.
It's awesome. I would love to do YouTube videos, but I don't have the first. I can do the voiceovers. That's not a problem. I can write a script. That's not a problem. I can come up with things to say. That's not an issue. But I have no idea. Like for instance, Will's channel. That I would love to do that. Where I'm not on camera, but I can do a voiceover and I can put together clips and stuff and have music in the background sometimes and all that. That's extremely effective, and I would love to try that. But I don't have any idea how to start that. Like, where do you get the videos from?
Well, Paula and I had said, because before Kip will write a bunch of stuff and then need people to do voiceovers. So we were already saying between you, Renee, and Kip, and then a couple others, especially with what Kip's doing with the New Creation Studios. But I'm sure there's plenty of things that he's been working on the background that he hasn't been able to get narration. We did have somebody on our team that was really, really talented with voiceovers. So if you look at some of the things that we have for the D13 ministry, like at the beginning of our live shows, we had a really cool scene at the beginning that sounded real professional, but the guy was doing radio voiceovers and stuff. So, but Jason,
I would love to do that.
When I was talking to you privately and we were saying how you could get in with Fiverr and stuff, if we could get you just a basic setup you could definitely get into it with your talents that God's given you. But then hooking you up with Kip and a few others, you can also use them on outreaches for helping spread the gospel at the same time.
Gosh, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for saying that. And hey, Kip, just, after the 2-hour broadcast is over, the phone won't work anymore after hours, unfortunately. So you have to call between 9 and 11. So sorry about that. And that's also, what was the other guy's name that we put the number up?
Peter.
Peter.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? I don't know. I don't think it won't work. If everybody switched over to TD, I could do it, but it won't work, I don't think, because I've got the system sound running through for the simulcast, so it'll just be doing duplicate if I have them there. So
yeah, but Kip, I would like you to call in and chime in on some of this stuff if you ever have an interest, and that'd be awesome. So, he just asked you a question, Matthias. I'm not sure if you're looking at the chat.
Oh,
you have a speakerphone.
What's that say?
Said you have a speakerphone on your house phone, Matthias. I could call you? Is what he said.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I think he called earlier, right before he knew I was broadcasting. Yeah, I called the house phone. That's cool.
I wonder what happened if we ended. What happens, Matthias, when I end this show for Blog Talk? Then you still go, don't you?
It does still go in there, but I don't know what's picking up. I don't know what's picking up in there because the microphone issue. So I don't know if I could go in there and talk or not. I would have
Peter,
to figure that out.
Yeah. Peter, when we asked you to try the number, it was still during the 2 hours that we have. So if you tried to call, you called late after 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, thanks, Brenda. So we would love to answer your questions, or if you have things to add, definitely. We'll be here again next Sunday from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. We do accept questions and comments from people in the Talking Doctrine chat, and we will be having people be more involved as time goes on. So we definitely will do that. So sorry you couldn't get through tonight, but hopefully you can get on in the future. Jessica Dallas, boring. She said that last. Oh, I'm sorry. She said, "Oh,
that's good, Jessica.
That's just something I say." I was like, "Okay, I'll take your word for it."
She says just to make a joke. She's our resident comic relief.
Yeah, and Mike W., I did see your comment from earlier. He says, Jason, you should make a channel where you pretend to be John Goodman and make him say all kinds of ridiculous things.
Sounds just like him.
That would actually be hilarious.
That would be.
So I think we got Kip with us now. Kip, are you there?
Hey, Kip.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I was just being quiet.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Kip.
Can you guys hear him?
Yeah.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you, but you're not going to really be able to hear them.
Oh, I can hear them.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean, it's just really quiet, but I can hear them.
Right, okay, well.
There you go.
Maybe I can move my setup right here. There we go. Now it's better. Now you guys can talk, I bet.
All right. Good to meet you, Kip.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I talked to you once in the chat room a while back. I don't know if you knew who I was or not, but I was saying, I'm sure you heard me talking about your Ezekiel's wheel video.
Yeah, that's so funny that those videos got that many views, and I never would have thought of that in the beginning.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It's funny when you do something like that, you probably have no idea what an impact it's going to have while you're doing it at the time, I'm sure.
No, you don't. You don't think about stuff like that. But one thing I've learned over the years is that's why I've gone back to making videos again now, is that's what I guess the gift is that God gave me, and that's what I'm supposed to be doing, unless I'm finally getting around to doing again.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need anyone to do voiceover or to do anything in any video or anything like that, please keep me in mind for that, because that's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing, and I just haven't done it myself. I would like to do some videos on YouTube myself in that way, with the voiceover and the...
you definitely have that narrator's voice.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Agreed.
Yeah. I was just listening to you tonight, and I'm like, yep, that's the kind of voice that I could easily sit and listen to for hours.
Oh, God, that's high praise. Thank you so much, Kip. That's awesome. Praise God for that. That's awesome.
Right. When Kip had been making videos before I met him, that's how I met him. And actually, Ezekiel's Wheels, because I called him, I would have never got into YouTube online ministry. I was focused on Facebook. And so it was Ezekiel's Wheels by reaching out, and then the way everything worked out, started doing the D13 live, and then Kip got...
I still have that email too.
Awesome.
Yeah, funny how that all works out like that.
Right. And how many views did that end up getting? What's it at now?
I think it's at 1 million.
Wow.
It's over 1 million.
Because I know the first one to that, The Greatest Mystery, that's almost, I think, at like 2 or 3 million.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, you have to know you're onto something there with that whole thing.
Well, when we before he got busy with the shop and everything, like there was times where he would, I'll make a Photoshop thing for him, and he's sitting there looking for people to do voiceovers.
Well,
and we didn't know you at the time.
No.
So now, but the Jason, if you don't mind giving us a little repertoire, just a couple of the voices that you shared with me the other night. They're fun.
Oh.
I put you on the spot, so go ahead.
Well, okay, so last week we did the Hannibal Lecter voice, which I'll read Peter Sullivan's comment.
Oh no.
Peter says, Brenda, it's a bummer. From 1 John 4:8, I can prove empirically that all love emanates from our Father. No good.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Because Steve.
Oh man, you should totally do like a reading through the Bible in Hannibal's voice.
No, I don't think you can go.
Yeah,
no, I'm
not. Kind of creepy.
Yeah, I'd be creepy.
Do you know how many people would actually listen to the Bible just because?
Yeah.
Well, hey, there you go.
I mean,
you might see a lot of unsaved people that would tune in then.
Yeah, I know, right? I'll read yours, Steve. Steve says, she's 28 minutes away, Jessica. LOL. Mike W says there's another voice from that. It's not as good, but it's
you know what that was in response to, right?
Who?
I said, you know what I wrote was in response to, right?
I don't.
Jessica asked, where is the British woman that says, thank you for using Blogtalk Radio. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Because at the stroke of midnight, Eastern Standard Time, that's what will happen.
Yeah, that's true. If we're on that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we've been doing lately.
Yeah, we have actually been doing the extra hour past couple times.
But the lotion one?
The other one, just my normal speaking voice, people think I sound like John Goodman. That's the one I hear all the time. I mean, I drive, I do transportation, I do Uber and Lyft sometimes, and black car, and that's the one I hear all the time. And it's so
now
funny
I
because
remember who you are.
Oh,
okay.
That's right. You could do the John Goodman voice. Now I know who you are.
Yeah, that's me.
Jason, you need to do the movie narration,
my voice.
Preview.
Wait, the what?
What was that, Jen?
I think it was last week you did like a movie preview, you know, how they narrate the movie previews.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
good.
the movie guy? That's okay, so here's here's Peter Sullivan in that voice. Matthias, I did try the number, got a message saying, thank you for calling Blog Talk Radio. We have no show scheduled for the next 24 hours. Goodbye. I tried. Honest.
That's awesome.
It puts lotion on the skin.
Peter Sullivan tries to call a radio station too late. Nothing gets done.
Awesome. You're great, Jay.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Jen, do your old. We want Jen to sing that song one more time.
Oh my gosh, not on there.
Come on, Jen. Let's hear you. Let's hear you.
No.
I'm not a fan.
Maybe next week.
All right. Awesome.
Oh,
There's all the various accents. I can. I grew up with Monty Python, so I can do almost any Monty Python skit that
Monty
exists.
Python. So funny.
Both sets. Usually, I found a friend that knew it, that would go over it with me to do one of the parts, because it's hard to do all the parts.
Do the one where it was the coconut one. Just do it.
The coconut one.
Yeah, the Monty Python where with the knights in the round table.
Oh, the movie? Yeah. Oh, here's a part of that. We are no longer the knights who say me. We are now the knights who say icky, 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 patang, whoop, and neat.
Mike's like, what?
Yeah. I have no idea who Monty Python is.
Oh, Alex is late.
Yeah.
Well, as I was sitting in the
Can you do
uploading my Reality of the Stars video, YouTube shut it down last month.
Can you do Princess Bride?
What, the woman?
Any of the voices? Any of the voices? The guy that says hello.
Oh, the past.
I have not tried.
Inconceivable.
Or
I haven't tried.
Yeah. That'd be good too. Inconceivable.
Yeah, I haven't tried.
Hello. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
What's his name? Prepare to die.
Oh,
Montego.
Inigo Montoya.
Inigo Montoya. Hello.
Yep.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
That's right. True love. We all gather
that was pretty close
today. In holy matrimony. Pastor guy. I've never tried to do voices. Now I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued
is what brings us together today.
Yeah.
There you go. I can do that one pretty good.
Billy Crystal's character. That'd be funny to learn how to do that voice. Jessica Dow says, "Ha, I love that film." Are you talking about Princess Bride? I guess that she is.
Yeah.
All right.
That's an awesome movie. Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
He's actually easy. Darth Vader's actually pretty easy. That's the guy that does that.
Steve can do that. Heavy breathing.
Do it, Steve.
I'm not going to let him live that heavy breathing. Making your bed.
and Jason, at the podcast with the Darth Vader voice.
What was that, Brenda?
And the podcast with the Darth Vader voice. Mike's cracking.
Hey, do you guys
somebody's doing it. It sounds like a submarine.
Who is that?
Turn to the dark side and we'll rule the universe together.
No, you
guys would have told me.
Did you guys see what Glenn put in? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, what?
What?
I can hear you.
You guys see what Glenn put in the chat room?
I think you made a good point. One never knows. I mean, on your chat or another one?
Okay, no, go back up. Go up to 3 more of his.
Okay.
His third one before that.
My first wife was a believer. She got mixed up with evangelical. They told her, leave me, take a child, and leave me with nothing except my son with Asperger's. Well, I did know about that, but I didn't know he put it in here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, totally. That's there are people out there that have horrible advice for people that's not a legitimate.
That's not biblical either.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of stories like that. I mean, I'm sorry that happened to him. I mean, obviously that's horrible. That no one should ever tell a wife to leave. Is that you, Brenda? All right, bye, Brenda.
Bye, Brenda.
Have fun. Come again. We'll see you next Sunday. You know, if you bought a better phone, it probably would last longer. Yes. That's right. A new phone.
Oh, no.
It's devolved into that.
Slap happy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right. I think I'll call it a night.
Alone.
Brenda says
all right, who's calling a night?
It's just not on the phone. She says, thanks for sharing your story, Indigo. I'm still here, Mike. All right. All right, so tune in next Sunday when we'll do the simulcast again. And next Sunday is Love Actually Part 3 and The Journey. So how many already know that it's not the destination in life, but it's the journey?
Yes. So true.
Oh, that one's easy, Mike. So Mike says, do the commercial. I actually did a mock commercial of this, of the guys that do the drag race stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah, like the advertisement for drag race. Sunday, come down to the Metro Mart. We're going to have lots of drag races. Cars. I don't know all the names of the cars.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I read
I'm ready for football.
Huh? Yeah.
Let's get ready
for some football.
Yeah. Did you ever do the Micro Machines commercial, Jason?
Let's get ready for football.
No, like the guy that talks really fast.
Oh, no. I can't. No, I can't. I can talk fast if I practice, like if you like memorize
the dialogue. Yeah.
But I can't do improv talk fast. I can do anything with a script. If you just give me text to read and tell me what you want, then I can try it. And if I don't know how to do it, I can usually learn it. Like I will try for Steve. I will try to do Princess Bride voices for next time. There you go, Steve.
Awesome.
Suck it up, Buttercup. Suck it up, Buttercup.
Princess Buttercup.
Yeah, that was perfect timing. He goes, sucked on that thing, and I said, suck it up, Buttercup.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where Steve sucks it up like a buttercup. Resting comfortably in his bed, in his truck, at a Walmart distribution center in Pennsylvania. Steve.
That's right.
I told Steve that when they start having him take people in the back of his truck to Walmart centers across America, then he probably should quit.
Yeah. I'll take him to a good church.
What are real tongues, Steve?
Why are you laughing?
There are also real tongues too, Brenda. Like what real tongues are you talking about, Steve?
The non-Kundalini speaking in tongues, but the real speaking in tongues.
Like what we're doing right now?
People don't fake. Well, that too. I'm talking.
The people don't fake.
About yes, the people that fake it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Yes, and I'm talking about the fact that there is what Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians, and it's also mentioned in several other places, including by Jesus, who says, "These signs shall follow them that believe. They shall cast out demons and speak in new tongues." Paul calls it if the difference between known tongues and angelic tongue. So, and when he says he speaks in tongues, his mind is unfruitful, which means he's not using his mind to create the words.
Yeah.
So that it is a spiritual gifting, and I do pray in tongues often when I don't know what else to say.
Well,
but
you do know the
pray
Spirit
about something. Yes.
Right. The Spirit utters the things that you can't say. Himself.
Oh yes, with groanings and moanings that cannot be uttered.
Yeah, but people think that's audible. Like it doesn't say it's audible. It says when we're praying.
Doesn't say it's not. Doesn't say.
I know.
Not
I'm not saying it does, but
and that's
not
what the Holy Spirit is doing. Doesn't necessarily mean that can't happen through me as I pray in this unknown tongue that I have, and that's for me. And I rarely ever were to do it in public. I can think of not less than 5 times where I've done it loud enough for someone to hear me outside of a foot radius. Like you'd have to be like
I don't have an issue
next
with that
to my. You'd have to be like next to my mouth, listening with your ear to hear me. Now, if I'm in my truck or whatever, and I'm listening, I've also had times where somebody's been praying like that aloud all of a sudden, and I heard what they said. And I could tell they were speaking in a language I didn't know, but I heard the words they said and spoke it. So, I mean, it's, and even with those rules, like I I think we should follow those for decency and in good order. But also, it says that the tongues, that speaking in tongues is for a sign for unbelievers.
Yeah,
and that
okay, hold on. The very purpose of it was used for making a group of people that spoke different language to be able to understand what they were saying. That's what it's for. It's not. It's not just for the unbelievers.
I agree with that. But there's a specific verse where
that's what it was.
Well, I agree that happened, but from how I read what Paul wrote is that it was for a sign for the unbelievers, that basically, like, this is a manifestation of God and they don't understand it, what's going on.
Well, he explained it to them, then they understood it.
Right. Well, he wrote that letter
to
those
turned from their unbelief to belief. Many of them that day who didn't understand it at first turned from their unbelief to belief. So then they were no longer unsaved or not believers anymore.
Right.
So it was a tool. It was a tool.
Exactly.
Back then.
Exactly.
My only point, and we don't have to get into a big discussion about it because it is a touchy subject, but my only point is that everyone that says that they have the gift of tongues and it is just them jabbering away at the mouth and there's no translation, that is not
I agree.
That's
now,
talked about.
Does somebody need to literally pause and say, here's the translation, or can it flow naturally? I think that can happen.
In a church service where someone has interrupted something to speak in tongues, there needs to be an interpretation. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that, biblically speaking. There's no argument with that whatsoever.
If it's three or more people.
Well, that's
but I also think, just like with anything like this, I've always felt like you do need to leave some room for the Holy Spirit to work, and that these were rules set up to create order where there was chaos, and that we don't want to, even with something like this, whether you believe that it's possible or not, that we don't want to become religionistic in how we worship as well, whether it's speaking in tongues or three songs and a sermon. That's the structure that most do, but can you leave room for a fourth and a fifth song, or more time than what you allotted for the Holy Spirit to work and worship? Because that's what I'm meaning. Like, if it's happening like 15, 20 times in the service and there's no interpretation, or if the pastor does it and then he follows it by a sentence in English.
Oftentimes it's a lot worse than that. There's no interpretation of anything, and there's not ever going to be, because no one understands what.
And that I disagree with. If somebody does that and they follow it up with an English sentence and they don't say this is the interpretation, I would conclude that is the interpretation, especially if they speak with power from the Holy Spirit when they follow that. I've seen that happen, and that's what I like to see. Or the pastor says, uses his own prayer language because he's, in preaching in the moment, had an epiphany, spoke in tongues, revealed what he had revealed to his spirit. That's how I've seen where, like what you're talking, where it's just craziness all the time, no respect, no nonsense.
Confusion. You said out of confusion. Well, what I'm referring to is when it is absolute total confusion. That's what I react to. And trust me, I've been in enough church services where I know the difference. Someone speaking in their prayer language while the worship music is being played quietly to themselves, it does not bother me or irk me or include me or anything. It's no problem. Do it all you want. I'm not criticizing you.
Yeah. Or somebody's praying like that at the altar, or the microphone cap happens to catch it by accident.
I'm not talking about that
different.
Either.
Yeah.
Well, it's way different.
Yeah.
It's way different.
Yeah.
If someone is, look at me, I'm speaking in gibberish. Look
right.
at how spiritual I am. Every church service that's open, and that's all they do. Where the focus is on them, it's not on the Spirit of God moving through the church.
That's not appropriate.
Well, it's never been appropriate, is my point.
No.
From the time that was mentioned in the Bible until now. Yeah, okay.
I agree. I think Paul was probably seeing people doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And just going on for 5-10 minutes on end, no stopping, no okay, this is great, guys, that you're praying in the Spirit and praying in tongues, but hold up. Wait a minute. Maybe you should use some real words more.
Yeah, I don't know if this I mean, you've been to a lot of services, but this drives me crazy, man. I love worship music and all that, and there's a place for it. I enjoy the teaching more. I enjoy getting down to the bottom of things and really studying things. That's what I prefer. But I do respond to worship services, and when I feel, God moving and stuff like that, it's awesome. But when they do you said 3 songs were done. I'm like, oh, what church is this? 3 songs were done. That's good. Okay, we'll get right to the meat. But the ones where they sing the same, and the song isn't even really that great. It's just a repetitive song that people can say over and over again, and the worship band can be up on stage for longer. And it's 6, 7 songs before you've even heard the sermon, and it's on and on. Now, before you say anything, yes, if the Spirit of God is moving and the worship, whoever's leading the worship, feels like that God's telling them that they need more time, etc., then you do it. You do whatever you need to do. But it isn't just singing the same song with just repetitive words again and again, and that's what God wants.
I hear what you're saying. I agree. It takes someone who knows how to worship.
Yeah.
To create that, to lead people into true worship, where their worship is worship. You're praising God for who He is.
Yeah. A lot of times in the seeker-friendly mega churches that are now, the worship band is for entertainment purposes only, and then maybe praise and worship second. It's all about the presentation and the lights and the light show and the slides and all that. And then, this is a song the new song that we wrote that you haven't heard. There's actually a pretty hilarious thing on YouTube about that, about the modern day praise and worship. I'll have to look that up later.
Did you see Matthias put a hangout link in our chat there, because we're about to get cut off in 2 minutes?
Oh, 2 minutes, we sure are. Okay. All right, so I guess this will end this part of the program. And does he want to go longer? Seems like he'd be tired. Are you going longer?
I'm tired, but we could continue.
No, it doesn't matter to me.
We got less than 60 seconds to decide.
Okay, I think I'm done, guys. I think I'm done for tonight. But thanks, guys, for everything.
We could always talk more about it at another broadcast.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, after hours.
When the price is right.
That's right. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the show. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again next Sunday on True Story Live. Thank you very much, Matthias and Talking Doctrine, for providing such an awesome partnership with your channel. I love it and appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. Thank you so much.
Oh, I praise God for it. I think it's an awesome connection.
Oh, me too. Me too. And we've only just begun. You know, that we've only been doing this since I started this last November. Started this channel. Now it should be over with here pretty quick.
Thank you for using Blogtalk Radio. Goodbye.
All right. I don't know if I'm live or not. Oh, I guess I'm echoing. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I don't know if I'm echoing. Chat room, am I echoing to you guys? Well, I guess I'm not echoing too bad. But hope you guys enjoyed that broadcast. I believe I snuck in on the broadcast in the back station, so I think I can control everything from here. But I want to say, Teresa, it's good seeing you in the chat room. Praise God you were able to make it to a live broadcast. Alex, Brenda, you were just on there. So Mike and Jessica, and then, of course, Steve as well. Peter, I wish you were listening live. So next week, you'll definitely have to call in and give us your insight on that. And, you know, I am going to start reminding people to hit the live button if they're chatting, because it happens often. So let's see. With that, we'll call it a night, guys. I do appreciate fellowship. Jessica, it's good to see you. I'm glad you stayed till the end, even though it was boring. Mike, if you're still here, glad you're here. Hit me up anytime. I'm here for conversation. Anytime. I mean, Google Hangouts, of course. Natalie, hello. Everybody else who was here, I think that's about it in the chat room that I can see. Mike W, I think I already said hello to you. So it's always a pleasure fellowshipping with you guys. I think I am still on the phone with Kip. We're going to have a conversation after the fact, but he's uploading the stars video. What is it called again, Kip?
The reality of the stars.
The reality of the stars. So it was taken down by YouTube. Not sure exactly what for, but I believe Kip corrected the small little thing and is uploading it back up. So Lord willing, it'll be there by the time everybody wakes up in the morning.
It'll be back online in about 5 minutes.
Oh, so yeah, awesome. So if you guys haven't to D13 Watchmen, you can go to the channel page here on TD, and on the featured channels you can get to it right there. So he's put up a couple videos that he'd been working on for a while. I guess they finally got a couple of them revamped, so he has them back up, and sounds like he'll be adding a lot more content. So if anybody from here from Talking Doctrine hasn't subbed to D13 Watchmen yet, go ahead and check that out. You guys will enjoy the videos coming out. So with that, tomorrow night we are going to do the Monday Milk. It is the third Monday of the month. We're doing those the first, second, and third Mondays of each month. Tuesday we have a testimony lined up, and not sure exactly when we're going to do the Liberty Bible study. Maybe Tuesday later evening, or maybe possibly Wednesday early evening. Either way, we've got discussions lined up for Saturday, and we've got a busy week. So make sure if you haven't been getting notifications from YouTube and you have rung the bell and you want emails, send me an email and let me know. We've got an email list that goes out and tells everybody about the broadcast notifications. So let me know you want to be on that list, and you'll get an email each time with a link directly to YouTube in your inbox. So let me know. I'll add you to the list. Other than that, just pay attention, and Lord willing, we'll see you live. Not alive, but see you when we're broadcasting live. So, thanks everybody. Take care. God bless, and good night, everyone.